DreAllDay.com.
I want to tell y'all a quick story. Then I'm gonna give you the application of the story and why it matters. So y'all saw the title of this post, right? DC Unit 247. Anybody from Penn State? Anybody from Penn State University? I got ties to Penn State. Y'all should come into this so y'all can hear this story, because I'm gonna tell y'all a story real quick of what happened. So I went to this college called Penn State Altoona. Y'all heard of Penn State, right? So Penn State has, in the state of Pennsylvania, Penn State got like 23 different campuses. Trey Tom said, I got to shout out Ghana. All right, what's going on to everybody out in Ghana? Gerald 1211, who just came in, what's up? Please keep hitting those hearts, y'all. I see the green, the blues, the orange, the yellows, the browns. Keep going. TFP from the Bronx, what's going on? All right, so look, y'all heard of Penn State University, right? Penn State University has like 23 different campuses. And the campus that I went to when I was getting ready to go to college, actually, when I was in high school, my senior year, I had really good marks because I went to what they call as a magnet school, which means a school where you got to have you got to meet certain academic standards to get accepted into it. So I went to that high school in Philly. It's called Engineering and Science. I did pretty well there. My GPA is like weighted against all the schools in the city. So even though I was good but not great in high school amongst my peers, compared to all the other students in the city, I was actually really good. My GPA was like 3.8 some shit compared to all the other schools in Philly, even though in school itself I was getting B's and C's, but compared to everybody else it was high. So, and my SAT score was pretty good too. I don't remember what the number was. So I started applying to all these colleges. Like whatever college would send me a free waiver, I would apply to that college. So I got into all these colleges. I got accepted to like 14 different colleges, but I had no idea of how I was going to pick one. So at the end of my senior year, this dude, he was a recruiter from what's the name of that school in Atlanta? The all-boys school. Somebody help me out. The name of the all-boys school in Atlanta. What's going on, Tiger Yoda 26? The all-boys school in Atlanta is called Morehouse University. Yes, Morehouse, Miss Golden. Thank you. Morehouse University. So this guy from Morehouse University came to my high school and he gave a presentation. My high school was basically all black kids. And so the counselor who was helping everybody get into their colleges or apply to colleges, she told me and like 8 other boys, yo, y'all come to my office at lunchtime on Tuesday because this guy from Morehouse wants to give y'all a presentation. So this guy from Morehouse comes in, he got his suit on, he gives his presentation, he's super serious. He talks about the school, whatever. We sitting there listening. He had everybody fill out these little information cards, like what's your name, what's your GPA, and what was your SAT score. So we all filled that out. And I happen to have one of the highest SAT scores of all the boys who happened to be in that room today, except one guy, this dude named Eric. He was in my class, actually. And his GPA, his SAT score was even higher than mine. So the guy collects all the cards. He's sitting there looking at him. He's super serious. It was like we was in jail, the way this dude was talking. So he's real serious. He looks at the cards, and he says, who's Eric? And the guy, Eric, raises his hand. He's like, Eric, he puts his signature or his initials on his piece of paper. The recruiter from Morehouse does. He says, Eric, if you want to be a Morehouse man, I'm offering you a full scholarship to come to Morehouse. All you got to do is when you send in your application, put this paper in there with it. They'll see my name. They're going to give you a full scholarship to come to Morehouse. Everybody in the room was like, oh, shit. And then he looked at my card. And he was like, who's Dre? And he was like, Dre, because Eric's was a little bit higher than mine. He was like, listen, Dre, I'll offer you a 50% scholarship. You want to come to Morehouse, you want to be a Morehouse man, that's what they call it, a Morehouse man, then you get 50% off of the price of tuition. And I'm like, oh shit. So I went home. I went and told the counselor. She was super excited for me. All the boys who was in class, all the boys who was in the room was telling everybody else in school, like, yo, Dre got a half scholarship, Eric got a full scholarship, and everybody's talking about it. I go home and tell my parents. They was really excited, like, oh man, you about to go to Morehouse. I'm telling everybody I know, like, oh, you going to be a Morehouse man, because Morehouse is a really, as far as for black people go, very prestigious, historically black college or university. So I'm like, I'm going to Morehouse. So we get to the end of my senior year of high school, right before graduation. And any of you graduate from high school, y'all know that when you graduate, when you walk across the stage, they usually announce or they put it in the program like such and such graduated and they're going to this school in the fall. Because my high school, everybody goes to college who graduates. So when I'm walking across the stage, they announce that Dre's gonna be going to Morehouse University, and everybody in the crowd is like satisfied and there because they all know Morehouse. So they're like, oh, okay, black kid going to Morehouse, you're gonna be a Morehouse man, walk around with your suit on once a week. Y'all know how it goes. So once I was really close to graduation, they had already had my information, what school I was going to in the fall. My parents said, listen, you're not gonna be able to go to Morehouse. And I'm like, why is that? And they said, well, you can't go to Morehouse because even if you get the half scholarship, Morehouse is in Georgia, mind you, and I'm from Philadelphia, so it's an out-of-state school. So if you go to Morehouse, even with a 50% scholarship, 50% off of tuition, we still got to pay for your books, your room and board, and the other half of the tuition. And Morehouse is not a cheap college to go to. It was very expensive based on our financial situation at the time. So my parents was like, listen, we would have to take out loans. You would have to take out a loan. We would have to take out loans. We're going to be in debt for the rest of our lives if we take out loans for you to go to Morehouse. So that's not going to work. And I didn't have no money, so it's not like I could protest. I couldn't say, well, y'all should take out the loan so I can go to college. I couldn't say that. So there's like, you're not going to be able to go to Morehouse. But you got accepted into all these other colleges. Listen, you got accepted to Penn State. Why don't you go to Penn State Abington, which is right outside of Philly. It's like 20 minutes from where I live. Say, go to Penn State Abington for a year. You're going to have a car, because I didn't have a car at the time. It's like, we'll get you a little used car, and you could drive back and forth. You could live at home for 1 year, go to school at Abington. Then after that year, see what the situation is. Maybe you can go to a different school. I didn't really have a say in it. I mean, she said it like it was a suggestion. Like, you ever had somebody tell you something, and they say it as if it's a suggestion, but you really know is a directive because you don't have any other option but what they suggesting? So when my mom was telling me this, I knew I had to actually do it. So I'm like, cool. So I ended up going to Penn State Abington for a year. I went to Penn State Abington for a year, played basketball there, played well enough. I was impressive enough as far as my talent goes that I got recruited to Penn State Altoona, rather, which is a Division III campus. It's the second biggest campus in the Penn State system. So I never even planned on going to Penn State, but I ended up going to Penn State Altoona because I got recruited there after my freshman year because I played well enough on the basketball team. So I ended my college years going to Penn State Altoona. Now, fast forward, graduated from Penn State Altoona 2004. Fast forward 10 years. 2004, around this time, 2014, around this time last year, I sent an email to some people at Penn State Altoona. Sent the email to them, basically sold myself. I said, listen, this is who I am. This is where I come from. You know, I went to this school. I graduated. I got this degree. I got a degree in business with a focus in management and marketing. So I got a degree in business, and this is what I've been doing since school over the last 10 years. You know, I went and played basketball. You know, I talked about YouTube. I talked about my website. I talked about building my brand. Basically sold myself. I basically just talked myself up. Like if somebody who knew me was trying to make you be impressed by me, I talked how they would talk, but it was actually me talking instead of somebody talking about me. I basically talked myself up, sold myself basically. And any of y'all don't know how to do that, you better learn how to do it because it'll open doors for you. So I sold myself to these people. This woman who's in charge of alumni relations, her name is Sue. She emailed me back. Actually, it wasn't Sue. It was one of her colleagues. I guess the person who takes the emails from this certain email address that I emailed to. I just found an email address about alumni relations. I sent the email to that address just to see who would say something. They wrote me back. This woman writes me back. She's like, Dre, you know, we talked on the phone. She's like, we're very impressed by what you've done. Really happy about your success over the last years. We're glad you reached out to us, you know, because I've reached out to them saying, listen, I want to be a speaker. I want to come speak at Penn State Altoona, my what do they call it? My alma mater. And I said, yeah, one of Sue's colleagues. So listen, let me get to the rest of the story so y'all understand what happened. So this is my alma mater. I said to them, listen, come book me to come speak at the school. Because when I went to Penn State Altoona, any of you who ever went to college, you know how they have speakers come to the school and come speak. But a lot of the speakers be boring as shit. Like, not some of the speakers be good, but some of the speakers be whack. Like, I remember when I was a freshman, Dave Chappelle came and spoke at my school. And this was like 2-3 years before he blew up with the Chappelle Show. This is when he was doing that. I think he did Half Baked, the movie. But a lot of people showed up just to see Dave Chappelle because he was pretty famous at the time. But also, they be having speakers that's so whack and boring. Like these stiffs in bad suits talking about absolutely nothing. But just because they got some kind of name, because they wrote a book or they was on TV somewhere locally or some bullshit, they hired them and these speakers suck. And I'm like, yo, why are y'all even hiring these people? They're not giving anything to the students at all. But anyway, because I knew that from my experience going to school there, I knew all the speakers suck. So I'm like, you know what? They never had, my whole time at Penn State Altoona, even at Abington, they never had a past student, someone who went to school there, graduated and did well, come back and speak at the school. So I'm like, shit, you know what? I could be the first person to do this. And I put that in the email. Like, I sold it. I really sold it. I'm like, listen, y'all never had a alumnus come speak at the school. Y'all never had an athlete come speak at the school. Y'all never had an athlete come out of the school and go pro and actually do something with it and kind of make something out of it in a sport. Because even outside of playing basketball overseas, most people don't even know what that is. I talked about YouTube. I talked about building my brand. I put links to my website, links to YouTube videos so they could actually see what I was doing. So I had some actual tangible proof of what I was doing. doing. Because if I just say I played basketball overseas, they wouldn't know nothing about that. They don't even know what that means. So I talked about all this stuff, and I'm like, yo, bring me back in. Book me to be a speaker at the school, because the students need to actually hear it from someone who was a student, someone who looks like them, someone who's young, not 55 years old in this cheap suit from the Men's Warehouse, somebody who actually got something to say that they can relate to. Plus, I'm talking about something that all of them are looking at. All of them's looking at internet. All of them's looking at websites. Everybody's looking at social media. Everybody's looking at building a personal brand. Everybody's trying to do that. I don't care what field you're going into. Everybody's trying to do those things. So I said, why don't y'all book me? Because if there's an expert on those topics, it's me. And I went to school here. And I'm coming to you and telling you to book me. It's not like y'all had to find me from some speakers bureau. You had to Google me and find a speaker. I'm offering y'all to be the guy. So this woman writes me back. I can't remember her name. I think her name was Terry, but I might be mistaken. But anyway, Terry emails me back. She's like, let's exchange information. Let's figure out a time we can get on the phone. So I get on the phone with Terry. Me and her talk for like an hour. I basically tell her everything I said in the email, reiterated it. So I guess she just wanted to get a feel for my energy through my voice instead of just through talking through what I wrote in the email. We talk, and she's saying all the right things. Like, Dre, I'm really impressed by your resume. It's great, all the positive things that you've done. Y'all, please keep hitting the hearts, y'all. Keep hitting the hearts. And if you're watching this right now and you're enjoying the story, please swipe to the right. I didn't even get to the meat of the story yet. This is going to be good. Swipe to the right. Share this on your Twitter feed. Let everybody know. Work on Your Game University is in session right now. Professor Emeritus Dre All Day is speaking. So we're talking on the phone. She's like, Dre, I'm really impressed by what you've done. It's great, all the positive things you've achieved. It's great that you went and played basketball and you went to school here. And she started name dropping all these teachers. Like, you remember this person, you remember this coach. And I'm like, yeah, I remember that person. I remember him. Like, yeah, I used to play ball with him. I had class with this woman. And she's like, well, after she finished talking, she's like, well, the person who actually makes the decisions, this after we had an hour-long conversation. I didn't even know she wasn't the decision maker. She's like, the person who actually makes the decisions, her name is Sue, because, she wanted me to have an initial conversation with you, just fill you out. And because I like everything that you're saying, I like your resume, I'm going to let Sue know that. I'm going to pass that knowledge on to Sue, and I'm going to set up a conversation with you and Sue. And it just so happens, Dre, that Sue travels to Florida every year. You live in South Florida. She's actually traveling to South Florida in like a month or two, so it's perfect timing that you reached out to us. I'm like, great. So I get on the phone with Sue about a week or two later. And Sue was like, she's the alumni relations director. She is the person, if you went to school at Penn State Altoona and you graduated and you want to somehow interact with the school after you graduated, she is the person to talk to. So I'm on the phone with Sue, and Sue was like, actually, I'm coming to South Florida. Like, you in Miami, Dre, I'm coming to Miami. I'm going to be there in like 3 weeks. I'm going to give you my cell phone number. Let's figure out a time that we can sit down and I can look you in your face and, fill you out, talk to you a little bit more, and see how you can, what's the phrase she used, see how we can engage you with the university. I'm like, perfect. She comes to Miami. All right, me and Sue met at Coral Gables. I forget the place we was at. I think it was the Biltmore. It's a place called the Biltmore Hotel, and it's a big golf course in Miami. Anybody plays golf, they know the Biltmore golf course. So I go meet her at the Biltmore Hotel, Coral Gables, Miami, last year. We sit down, me and her sitting down, and I'm like, what brings you to Florida? I thought maybe she was just going on vacation. She was like, no, we down here getting like donations. I know colleges have boosters and people who give money, not sports boosters. Our sports programs ain't really that good. But anyway, like people who just give money to the university so they get their names on buildings, get classrooms named after them, stuff like that. That's something that I'm eventually going to do too. I don't know if I'm going to give it to Penn State Altoona. Once I get to the end of the story, you'll understand why. But anyway, she's like, we down here because we know there are some people who give a lot of money to the university who live down here, so we go down here just to show our face, shake hands, meet with them, let them know how much we appreciate their contributions, and to get another check from these people. We down here trying to get some money. So we we went to see this guy. He got a yacht. This guy got a mansion. She's telling me all these people who give a lot of money to the university who she was down there meeting. I'm like, all right, cool. So we get to talking. We talking about me. I'm telling her. She was like, Dre, tell me your whole story. So I'm sitting there telling her my whole story from like everything I told y'all so far. I told her the story in detail, like from high school all the way through 4 years of college, then the whole 10 years after that. I'm telling her the whole story. So I get about 65% through the story, right? And these two people come walking up, a man and a woman. I don't know who they are. It just so happens that this man and this woman is the dean of students at Penn State Altoona. Basically, she's the CEO of the university. It's her and like one of her assistants, like her right-hand guy. he walks up too. So they walk up together. They had just been walking through the hotel because we sitting outside, like, you know, because the hotel got a restaurant. You know how you can sit outside at a restaurant and it's like right on the water. Well, if you have been to Miami and South Florida, y'all know it's right on the water. It's nice outside. It's like November, but it's warm. So we sitting out there. The dean of students and her right-hand guy come up too. I didn't know that she was the dean of students and he was the right-hand guy. They introduced themselves. We start talking. Just so happens this woman used to be a professor. I knew her name, but I didn't know her face, but I never had her classes. So she had risen in the ranks and become the CEO of the school or the dean. Same thing. All right. If y'all ever hear the dean is the CEO. All right. They run the show. So anyway, she sits down and I kind of backtrack in the story because Sue introduced me to them, said, this is Dre. He did this. He did that. He wants to come speak at Penn State Altoona. He went to school here. He's a professional athlete. So the woman, the dean of students, she's kind of like, she outranks the other two of them. So she kind of takes over the conversation. She's like, oh, well, tell me your story. So I had to go back a little bit in the story. I'm telling the whole story over again. I'm telling her the whole thing from like college on, all this stuff, you know, what we want to do. It comes to find out her real angle was what she wanted me to donate some money to the school. Because when she heard, you know, this guy's an athlete, he got his own business, got his own brand, she wanted me to donate some money. That's what she really wanted. But anyway, we had this whole conversation and they're like, you know, we figured out a way. At the end of the conversation, Sue says, Dre, we're going to figure out a way we can engage you. The first thing we're going to do, Dre, is we're going to write an article about you in the alumni newsletter. The newsletter goes out to like 20,000 people every month. We're going to have our guy who writes the newsletter call you. He's going to interview you. He's going to do an article about you. It's going to go out in our next newsletter. I'm like, perfect. That's a great first step. But I'm like, Sue, listen, I'm trying to come speak there. I don't want no fucking newsletter. I want to come speak at the school. So she's like, well, let's do this thing first and we'll figure it out. She moves real slow. You know how old people move slow? Like my grandmom or something. So she's like, let's just do this one thing. I'm like, yo, it's 10 things we need to do. She's like, no, let's do one thing first. And then we'll wait a year and then we'll do the next thing. Y'all know what I'm saying, figuratively speaking. So anyway, the guy calls me like 2 weeks later. Sue and all them go back to Penn State. The guy who writes the newsletter calls me. He does a little interview on me. They write this little article on me, put it in the Penn State Altoona newsletter. I hadn't even gotten the newsletter yet, and one of my guys who I went to school with, who was one of my teammates, texted me. No, he Facebook messaged me, and he had took a screenshot of the newsletter because he saw me in it, because it was like Dre Baldwin, you know, I forget what it said, like works on his game, builds a brand, builds a business, something like that. I forget what the headline was. So anyway, he sent a screenshot of it to me. A couple people who I went to school with text me and called me like, yo, I saw you in the Penn State newsletter, congratulations, etc., etc. I'm like, cool. So then I check my email, I see the newsletter. Sue texts me like, yo, Dre, did you see the newsletter? I'm like, yeah, it's all great, cool. So I screenshotted it. I put it up on Instagram, like, yo, I'm in the Penn State newsletter. I texted to my dad and to my mom, to my sister, like, yo, I'm in the Penn State Altoona newsletter. I put a post on my website. I'm in the Penn State Altoona newsletter. I'm telling people that I know. People's like, yo, congratulations. My dad took it, posted on his Facebook, like, yo, my son is in the Penn State Altoona newsletter. So all my family is seeing it on Facebook, hitting me up, like, yo, congratulations, Dre, etc., right? So the next day, the very next day, the next morning, like, it came out on like a Monday, right? The next day is a Tuesday. And it's funny, whoever that is with the blue hearts right now, that's Penn State blue right there, that blue that you hit in those hearts. So whoever's in here, please keep hitting the heart, swipe to the right, so I'll tell you the rest of the story. Swipe to the right and share this with your friends on Twitter. So anyway, look, the very next day after the story comes out, I get to my computer. I went to the gym. I got to my computer. I'll go to the page on my website that I had posted, because I had put a link. I wrote a little post and I put a link to the story, and I was going to click on the story, right? I click on the story and there's a blank page, like there's nothing there. It's a completely blank page, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I thought maybe it might just be my internet, something wrong with my internet, something wrong with my Safari browser. So I closed it out. I went to the website on my phone. I clicked on the link on my phone. It was a blank page. I'm like, what is this? So I go to my email. I click on the link straight from the email from the newsletter. There's a blank page. So I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I sent the text to Sue, and I'm like, Sue, you know, for some reason I'm trying to click on the link to the article and it seems like it's not there. Is there something wrong with y'all site? Did the site go down? What's going on? Because I knew that everybody that saw my post on Instagram, my post on, because I had tweeted about it, everybody from my dad's Facebook, I knew everybody was going to be clicking on the link so they could read the story, but the story wasn't there, because I'm like, the first 24, 48 hours is important to launch a story. So it wasn't there. So Sue calls me. She didn't even respond to my text. She called me like 2 minutes later. I'm like, hey, Sue, good morning, what's going on? And I knew it was something because she was calling me. I'm like, why would she just call me like that? You know, when you text somebody and they respond with a phone call, you know they really got something to say. So anyway, she calls me, and I'm like, hey, Sue, what's going on? She's like, Dre, we had to remove your post from the Penn State website, from the Penn State Altoona website. We had to remove your post from the Penn State Altoona website. And I'm like, what? What do you mean you had to remove my post from the Penn State Altoona website? Why would you need to remove my post from the website? And Sue says, this is what Sue says. All right, check this out, y'all. She says that the Dean of Students, the CEO, her name is Lori Bechtel. That's her name, Lori Bechtel, the CEO. She's still the CEO of the school, Dean, whatever, same thing. The CEO had, when the article came out, right, this is what she did. No, it wasn't even Sue. It wasn't even Sue. Let me tell y'all what happened. The article came out, so Lori, the CEO, who hadn't really, after the fact that she was trying to get me to donate some money to the school, she saw that wasn't going to happen, at least in that conversation. She didn't really pay me no mind. She got up from the table, went back to her hotel room, whatever. She didn't really care about the story coming out. They put out stories all the time on the website. She don't have time to look at all that stuff. She's running the whole campus. When the story came out in the newsletter, she decided to click on it and kind of read up about me, like, who is this guy that I met down in Miami who played basketball? So she read my little story, and the guy who had did the article on me said, Dre, do you have any websites or anything we could tell people where to find more information about you? You know how that is with an interview. And I said, yo, you can find me on Twitter at this, Instagram's this, my YouTube is this, my website is dreallday.com, right? So this woman, the CEO, she had actually reads the newsletter for the first time and does some research on me for the first time. She goes to dreallday.com, my website. She goes to dreallday.com and starts reading some of the stuff that's on my website. And according to Sue, Lori, the Dean of Students, decided that because there was profanity on my website, that they couldn't keep my post. The article that they wrote about me that had no curse words in it, that was all 100% factual, they had to take it down off the website because I had curse words on my website. Can y'all tell me how fucking stupid that is? I'm going to tell you why it's stupid. If you don't understand why that makes no sense, I'm going to tell you why. And then I'm going to tell you why the title of this stream is what the title of the stream is. So this woman, Sue is telling me, like, she's telling me this. She's like, because of some of the language that you had on your website, our Dean of Students decided that we should pull the article. And I'm like, your Dean of Students? I was like, you mean Lori, the woman who was sitting right there looking me in my face 2 months ago, asking me to donate money to the university? That Dean of Students? That's who you're talking about, Sue? She's like, yeah. That's what I'm talking about. And I'm sitting there talking to her. I'm like, listen, like, the article that y'all put on the Penn State website that was talking about me, it wasn't any of my opinion. It was all factual information. Like, Dre is from Philadelphia. He graduated from Altoona. He got a degree in business. He played basketball. He got this website. He's on YouTube. He's on social media. He works with businesses and entrepreneurs. He's a professional speaker. All that stuff was actual. Those were facts. None of the facts changed. Just because you happen to read some profanity on my website, now I can't be on your website because I got profanity on my website. That doesn't even make any sense. And why is the Dean of Students even getting involved? She didn't want to be involved in nothing else we was talking about, but all of a sudden she wants to get involved to spike that article. So me and Sue, we had a brief conversation. Obviously, I knew Sue she was kind of the puppet in the whole situation. She's a good person, but she was kind of the puppet in the whole situation. She didn't have no say. It's not like she could argue with the Dean of Students and her boss and get fired. She wasn't going to do that over me because I wasn't making her no money. So in conclusion, they ended up pulling the article off the website, right? So this is what happens next. About a month or two later, I talk to Sue again. We have a conversation. We have a deeper conversation where I'm explaining to her, listen, you talking about people using bad language. I went and pulled a list. I had a list of all these people, famous people who have spoken at colleges or universities recently. Like, y'all seen Kanye West speak at a college before? Kanye West goes and speaks at colleges. Kanye West, let's just use him as one example. He's spoken at a whole bunch of universities. And like 3 days before me and Sue got on the phone, Kanye had spoken at Oxford University in London. Or in the UK, wherever it is, in Oxford. Anyway, Kanye West, he raps, he curses all the time, like all kinds of profanity all in his songs. But they paid that man 6 figures to go speak at that university. And guess what? When Kanye West goes and speaks at that university, is every student on campus coming to come hear that guy speak? Absolutely. And this is what y'all got to understand. When you go to school, and this is what I'm saying to Sue. I'm saying this all to Sue. I say, Kanye West just spoke. Bill O'Reilly speaks at universities. Donald Trump speaks at universities. All kinds of famous people, rappers, actors, athletes that come speak at universities, and you can find somehow, somewhere in the world, this person using whatever you consider to be negative language on their social media, on their website, in a video, etc. And you're going to hold that against me and take it down off your site. And it wasn't really that it was that big of a deal for me to be on that newsletter site, because again, that wasn't even what I was after in the first place. But it's just the fact that that school, that Penn State Altoona, would think so small. They're such small thinkers that they would say, oh, we can't have you on a website because you got cursing on your personal website. Like, dude, I'll be the best speaker to ever come through that goddamn campus. you hired. Now, let me get to the next point here. Understand that when you in college, right? No, they didn't have a bigger name. That's the problem, Trey Time. They don't have a bigger name. That's exactly the problem. Because if they had big names, like if they had Barack Obama and Bill Clinton and Jay-Z and Diddy and Kim Kardashian coming to speak, I probably wouldn't have reached out in the first place. I would have said, damn, they aim pretty high. They aiming for people who are super famous. I'm not that famous yet, so let me get a little bit more famous, and then I'm going to come back to them. But that wasn't the case. The reason I reached out to them was I'm like, look at these bum-ass people they keep hiring to come speak here. They need to hire me so they actually have somebody who can engage with the audience that they can actually relate to, that makes sense, instead of the bum-ass weather girl off the local Channel 10 news. Just because she's on the weather every morning don't mean she got anything to say. She probably doesn't. That's why she's doing the weather in the first place. Hey, no disrespect to anybody who does the weather, but anyway, y'all understand my point. Figuratively speaking is the way I'm saying that. So when you go to college, right, when you pay tuition, or if you got a scholarship, you know, your scholarship is paying your tuition, there's something in there called the student activity fee or the speaker fee. They use different words to kind of hide the fees that they hitting you over your head with, but it's called a student activity fee. Usually is about anywhere from $100 to $500 per semester. And understand this, when you go to college, you're paying that $100, $500 per semester. That money is you times every other student in the school. So this is tens of thousands of dollars, goes to the fees of the people who come in to speak at the university. So if you go to school and somebody comes in here to speak and they not even interesting, and you read their bio or you see their name and you like, who the fuck is that? And you don't even go hear it because they not even interesting. Nothing about them interests you. You paid for that speaker. Like the school pays the people who come in to speak. They might pay them $5,000, they might pay them $10,000, they may pay them $100,000. But that money is not coming, it's not out of the kindness of the heart of the school. That's your money. If you are a student or you're a parent and you're paying for your student to go to school, that is your money that's going in the pocket of the people that come to speak. So the person that comes to speak is so corny, so uninteresting, so uncharismatic, I guess that's not the best term, but so uninteresting that you don't even go to hear what they got to say. You paid them anyway. You paid for something that you didn't even take part in, that you didn't even enjoy, because the speaker sucks. And the reason that the speakers suck is not because it's not the students' fault. Because listen, y'all don't have no say. So think about this, right? All the money that goes to pay the speakers that come to your college or university, right? You have no say in who the speaker is, but all the money is coming out of your pocket. So you're paying for something that you have absolutely no say in who gets chosen. At a college or university, there's a committee of about 10 middle-aged people who don't know what's going on if you're 21 to 20. If you're between the ages of 18 and 25, there's a whole different world you looking at than the people who work at a college or university who are between the ages of 40 and 65. But the people who are between the ages of 40 and 65 are deciding who should come speak to an audience of people who are between the ages of 18 and 25. Does that make any sense whatsoever? And guess what? They're making a decision with your money. That's not their money. They're making a decision with the money that's coming out of your pocket that you're going to be paying for your student loans for the next 20 years when you get out of school, and you have no say in who the speakers are. So that's why it's such a huge disconnect between the speakers that come through a university like Penn State Altoona and the people who actually show up to listen to them talk. You know how a lot of times when they would have speakers at my school when I was in college, the only time I showed up is if one time I was part of this program. I don't even remember how I got in the program, but they had like a little private dinner for the person who was the speaker and like 10 students to come be a part of the dinner with the speaker. So I went and heard the speaker. She talked a little bit to us at dinner, and then she went and spoke to the audience. And I think she was like, her name was Carolyn Mosley Braun. She's a politician. She was somewhat involved in, and this was 2004, right? So this is in the spring of 2004. So this is before Bush got elected the second time. So this is before we even had a black president. And I remember a lot of black people showed up because she was black. She's a black woman. and she was in politics. So people showed up asking, yo, will we ever have a black president? And we know 4 years later we got one. But in 2004, nobody even thought that was even possible. But anyway, people showed up for that, but she was boring. She didn't say much. You know, she was a Democrat. She trashed George Bush a little bit. But besides that, she didn't really say nothing. She was boring. And a lot of the speakers who came through the 4 years I was there, I never even showed up to go see them because they were these old, middle-aged people from nowhere. They didn't have no ties to the university, and nothing that they were saying had anything to do with what we were going through. Like, you talking to a bunch of 18 to 25, 24-year-olds who about to get out of school, the internet's starting to blow up. None of these people who you're hiring know anything about that world. Nothing. They know nothing about it, but you're hiring them with my money and telling me I should come hear them speak. I don't want to hear these bum-ass speakers speak. And most of them wasn't even speakers. They had no story. It was just nothing interesting about them. So the reason why the title of this stream is what it is because they don't teach this in school. Like, it ain't no college professor in the United States or anywhere in the world who could teach you how to do what we're doing on Periscope right now, who could teach you how to get 150,000 hearts, who could teach you how to get 30 million views on your videos, who could teach you how to start a website and build a brand from it. Ain't no teacher could teach you how to do that. What a teacher could teach you how to do is what they did, which is go to school, get good grades, and go get a job working at a school. That's what a teacher can teach you. People can only teach what they know. And that's why I talk about this all the time, because sometimes people watch basketball or they watch Stephen Curry or Kyrie Irving. They're like, oh, well, you got to do it this way, that way, and the third way. Listen, dude, you can't teach something that you haven't actually done. He said, did that hurt me in learning certain things, do I think? What do you mean by that? I don't know what you mean by that question, Tiger Yoda. The thing is, when you talk about, and Takaro says schools suck, and as it's Nutella USA, is that actually Nutella? I know some people who want a lifetime of supply of Nutella. So Nutella, if you got some way I can get that, some way I need to get in touch with, let me know. Because I got some people who are interested. But anyway, please keep hitting those hearts, y'all, as I tell the rest of the story. They can't teach this in no university. All right, ain't no college professor can teach you how to build a brand on the internet. And ain't no ain't no mathematics or business class teacher who can teach you how to build your brand through video. They can't teach you content marketing. They can't teach you building up a blog, building your name through a blog. They can't teach you how to get known and get followers on Periscope and do an hour-long Periscope and still have people listening to what you got to say. Ain't no college professor can teach that. Ain't no school for this shit. And they want to hire the weather girl off the local news channel because everybody knows her name. But then she gets there and she ain't got a damn thing to say. And you like, yo, $500 of my money went to pay this woman and I ain't got no say in it. But these are the people that are hiring her, and y'all don't have no choice in who's hiring. And I said to Sue when I was talking to her on the phone the second time, I said, Sue, do you understand that the students that you are hired, the students that you get paid to serve are half your age? And that they're looking at stuff, they're a third of your age, and they're looking for things. Tiger Yoda, if you got a school that's interested, tell me how to get in touch with them. I'd love to come speak in Australia. There are students who are age 18 to 24. You're 60-something years old. What the hell do you know about what they're interested in? You don't know anything. That makes no sense. So Trey says, managing business with a focus on marketing is good to have while you teach me. My major in college has nothing to do with what I'm doing right now. Not a damn thing. And I'm going to talk about that in a separate stream, maybe later on today or tomorrow. What I learned in college has nothing to do with what I'm doing right now. So sometimes people ask me like, yo, Dre, like I tell them about my background. They're like, yo, Dre, so I guess your college education had a lot to do with what you do now because you majored in business, management, and marketing. And I say, no, it didn't. It had nothing to do with it. I majored in marketing. Listen, there ain't no marketing professor at Penn State Altoona can tell you shit about building a brand on the internet. Not a goddamn thing. How did I get so open-minded from reading books? I got open-minded from reading books, not from going to school, not from listening to teachers. I got it from reading books, from watching videos, personal development, people who actually know this stuff, who actually did it, not read about it. Would I come to Australia? Yes, I will come to Australia. I will absolutely come to Australia to speak. And they said, yeah, they use that as an excuse, exactly. They use that as an excuse to not have me on their website because it wasn't the whole school. It was just one person. The dean of students made the decision. So I don't know what other channel. She don't have to go through no channel. She's in charge. So if she says take that off, it's off. There ain't no debate. It's not a democracy. She runs it. But anyway, the point of it is this. Colleges can't teach you what you see right here. Like, I know a lot of you who are in school right now, are you going to be out of school within the next 5 to 10 years? The stuff that they teach, the stuff that the professors in your college are teaching you will teach you how to be successful in one type of world. And the type of world that you're looking at right now, you're talking about Periscope, you're talking about social media, you're talking about websites, you're talking about non-traditional forms of business. They can't teach you this because they don't know it. They can only teach what they know. When you have a job at a university teaching a class, that's the traditional workforce. All right, my sister is like the academic LeBron James. She went to the best high school. First of all, she went to elementary school, and all right, definitely hit me on Twitter at Dre all day. Hit me on Twitter at Dre all day. Look, here's the thing. My sister, we went to the same elementary school. She's a year older than me. She skipped the second grade, so she ended up being 2 years ahead of me academically. Skipped the second grade. She went to the best high school in the city of Philadelphia that I tried to get into but didn't get in. I got rejected. She got accepted. She went to that high school. She got all A's for 4 straight years. She got a full scholarship to an Ivy League university. She went to the University of Pennsylvania. She got an MBA from Wharton School of Business, those of you who know about Ivy League school. She went to Wharton School of Business, and she worked as an investment banker for a couple years, stopped doing that, had a kid or two, went over to the West Coast, went to Stanford University, got a sociology degree, a PhD, and a JD. So she got a PhD, a JD, and an MBA from University of Pennsylvania and Stanford University. She basically got every degree you could possibly get from the best possible schools you could possibly get them from. She is, when it comes to pedigree of academics, she's a pure breed. She got everything you need. And she wants to go become a professor at a school. My sister, the only thing that she's going to be capable of really doing if she keeps following the program is she's going to be able to go get a job somewhere. Maybe she'll make a lot of money at her job. I don't know what you consider to be a lot, but whatever she's going to make doing money in her job as a teacher, teaching other people how to do the same thing that she was taught to do, which is go to school, listen to what everybody tells you, sit down, shut up until somebody tells you what to do, and then when they tell you that it's time to stop doing what I tell you to do, go home and you come back the next day and do the exact same thing. That's what a job is. When you go to school is, y'all got to understand what school was invented for. And right now I'm talking to a lot of the young people, and any of you watching who not in school no more, but if you know somebody in school, pass on this information. School was invented during the Industrial Revolution. The way that school is as we know it today, it was invented during the Industrial Revolution. You know what the Industrial Revolution is? The Industrial Revolution was when the United States, exactly, Golden Hoop said it perfectly, to make workers. The Industrial Revolution was like when we were starting to put together a whole bunch of factories. All right, Tiger Yoda's in year 10. We were putting together a whole bunch of factories, and we were starting to mass produce items, mass produce tangible products like cars, TVs, houses, furniture, things like that, desks, not computers, but y'all understand what I'm saying, electronics maybe. We're starting to mass produce these things. So when you're mass producing something, you have an assembly line, you need workers, you need people to be in there actually doing the work all day long. So we invented school. School is invented. This is what I want y'all to understand what school is, especially in the United States. Now, if you don't live in the United States, it might be a little bit different, but it might be the same. So just listen and you can decide based on what you know. I don't know because I didn't grow up nowhere but the USA. School is designed for a whole bunch of people to come sit in one place. Everybody does the exact same thing, and you're judged based on how close to the standards that the school decides whether you're good or whether you're not good. So school gives you, when you go to school, you sit in the room, you fold your hands, you say nothing, and you listen to the teacher talk. They give you a whole bunch of information that they read out of a book. You get the information, and you memorize the information out of the book. When it comes time for the test, you regurgitate the information that's already in the book. You show that you memorized it well enough that you can regurgitate it back on a piece of paper, and if you do that well, you get a high grade. You're quote-unquote successful at school. You're up here. Now, if you're a person who's not good at memorizing and regurgitating the information out of a book, they put you down here. They say something's wrong with you. They make you take the class again, or they don't let you graduate, or they don't let you into the next level of school. That's what school is. School is exactly like a job. A job is like this. You go there, somebody tells you exactly what to do. You follow the instructions all day. If you don't follow the right instructions, you get fired, you lose your job. Or if you do follow the instructions, you're doing well, you're a good worker, you get a raise. Not to say there's anything wrong with a job, but what school is designed for is to teach you how to go work in a job. So if you want to do something other than work in a job, school is not going to teach you how to do that. That's my point. So if you want to go get a job, you want to work somewhere, there's nothing wrong with that. Doesn't make you a bad person, doesn't make you less than anybody else. But I want you to understand is if you plan on doing something in your life that is other than a traditional workforce, other than a traditional job and being in a traditional workforce, school cannot teach you how to do it. Doesn't mean that school has no value whatsoever. No, that's not what I'm saying. In school, you can learn how to read, you learn how to write, you learn how to do basic math, you can learn how to interact with people, you can learn the dynamics of power, learn the dynamics of communication, working with other individuals. That's something that you can learn in school. But school does not teach you people skills. And when I say communication, you can learn how to know how to talk, how to speak a language, things like that. But you can't learn people skills in school, because in school is a controlled environment. So the world is not a controlled environment. School is a controlled environment. For example, when you're in school and you got conflict with another student on the other side of the classroom, that student probably is not going to just jump up and try to beat your ass in the middle of class, because there'll be a huge penalty to that student for doing that. And if you go do the same thing to them, it'd be a huge penalty for you for doing it. But in the real world, there's a penalty, but that's not really going to stop anybody from doing it if they really want to. Somebody wants to kill your business and completely take you out, they can do it in the real world. In school, nobody can kill your business and completely take you out of being in college and make you lose all your tuition money. They can't do it because it's a controlled environment. So understand that school is a controlled environment. The real world is not controlled. Which means all the things that won't happen to you in school because you got that shelter of being in school, they will happen to you in the real life. And there's no professor in college and any university in America that can prepare you for that, because they don't know what it's like, because all they know is what they've been doing, which is working the traditional workforce. So if you want to do something different, like you want to have your own brand on the internet, you want to have a website, you want to be on social media, you want to be dominating whatever platform of social media comes out 10 years from now. Because look, if you just start in college right now, 5 years from now, there's going to be some whole other stuff going on the internet that Periscope might even be outdated. People might be like, yo, Periscope, that's old. That's for old people. So you got to understand that nobody who's in teaching a class in a school right now can teach you how to be ready for that. I remember I was talking to my cousin. My cousin graduated from college like a year or two ago. And I was talking to him about, creating passive streams of income, about building a business outside of his work, because he works at a traditional job. I think he's like an engineer or something. And he was telling me how they made him have to take more hours at work and have less days off. And he had no say in it. He didn't get a raise or nothing. He just had to do it because his boss told him to do it. And I didn't tell him they need to quit his job, because that wouldn't be a responsible thing to do. He still has to take care of his adult responsibilities. But I said, listen, why don't you start getting some information, get some knowledge about how you can build some things on the side that may eventually put you in a position where you don't need the job, where maybe you can have your own business. And I started telling him about books. I started telling him about Tim Ferriss. I told him about James Altucher. I was telling him about somebody like Grant Cardone. I was telling him about all the blogs that I read. What's going on Harlem Joe? What's going on Fraud? People who just came in. I was telling them about people who know business, people who talk about business as it exists now in 2015, not the outdated stuff that they teaching you in textbooks. And here's the thing about textbooks. If you're in school right now, do you know how long it takes to print a textbook? How long it takes to actually write it and then print it to the point that that is actually bind it and you can hold it in your hand, you can buy it at a store. You know how long that takes? It takes years to print out a textbook. So let's just say somebody wrote a textbook like McGraw-Hill, right? Let's say McGraw-Hill wrote a textbook on social media. If they wrote a textbook on social media, they probably had to write it in 2013 in order for you to buy it in 2015. Y'all follow my logic so far? Because that book, to send a book to press and print out millions of copies of it, or hundreds of thousands of copies to distribute to every school in the world, every school in the United States, that takes time. That doesn't happen overnight. And all the information they got to put in the book and write it and all that stuff, that takes a long time. And they got to go through a whole lot of checks and balances by a whole lot of people before it's approved and actually printed. So if McGraw-Hill wrote a book on social media, they got to write it in 2013 in order for you to buy it in 2015. Do y'all realize how much has changed in social media since 2013? By the time you get the book, the shit is already outdated. And it's written by a whole bunch of people who work in a traditional job force who don't know shit about social media. They interviewed some people and read some articles on Forbes.com, and now they think they're going to teach you about social media. They don't know what they're talking about. There ain't no school for this shit. Do y'all understand that? They don't teach this in school. They don't teach you in school how to build a virtual business. They don't teach you in school how to have a business. They don't teach you in school how to have a business, period. You know what school teaches you? School teaches you how to read, watch, write, and listen what the people who are actually doing this stuff is doing. All right, a business professor in school, most business professors in school don't have businesses. All right, so if you're going to take a business class, like if you go to college, right, and you're going to take a business, you're going to major in business, I want you to go find out from each one of the professors who teach in the business school if they actually have a business, if they actually are running a business. Because if they're running a business, they probably wouldn't be teaching at a school. Now, there are some exceptions to this rule. There are some business professors who actually do run a business and they teach at the school part-time. They do that on they teach at school when they got some free time. I had one professor who actually did run a business, and he only taught class once a week. He would come into town, teach his class, and he'd go right back out of town for a week. Then he'd come back the next week and teach his class. But the majority of my business professors, the woman who was running the business department, my academic advisor, she didn't have no damn business. She was working at the school. Her full-time job was working at the school. What the hell is she going to teach me about running the business when she works at the school all day? The guy who was running the business department, there was this guy named Bill Engelbrett. He was the head of the business department at Penn State Altoona. And he didn't really like me that much because I used to fall asleep in his boring ass class when he was reading out of the textbook with his cheap suits on. And it wasn't that I had anything wrong with him. I didn't have a problem with him personally. It's just that I knew he didn't know what the hell he was talking about. And I used to think to myself, I wasn't able to put it in words as well as I can now, 11 years ago. But I'm like, if I want to run a business, because at the time I was looking at the internet. This is 2004. The internet was just starting to get popular. I'm like, if I'm going to run a business, I'm going to make a business out of what I do. I want to play basketball professionally. First, I wanted to play basketball. That was my number one thing. The business idea started to come a little bit later. I'm like, I want to be a professional basketball player. What the hell can this dude teach me about that? All right, what is in this textbook that's going to help me do that? Nothing. Zero. There was nothing that they could teach me. But even further than that, if I wanted to become a business person, if you want to start a website, you want to start a blog, you want to be in social media, you want to have a non-traditional business where you don't have a brick and mortar store and you're not following the traditional rules of business, because we know there are a lot of rules, traditional rules that are not being followed today by some highly successful people. I know y'all can agree with that. If I want to do that, how is this guy who grew up in the 60s and 70s, who's teaching me information out of a textbook which got printed at least 2.5 years ago, how am I supposed to learn from this guy? All right, Tiger Yoda, make sure you hit me up. This will be on YouTube. How is this guy going to teach me? Nothing he's saying is any newer than 2.5 years old. All right, everything he's teaching me has to be at least 2.5 years old. How is this guy going to teach me? I don't understand this. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And I'm looking around in the classroom, and I'm like, am I the only person who's thinking this? And I'm looking at my other classmates, and a lot of them was like, they would look at me like I was like the outcast, bad student in the class. I know when you're in school, you got that one student who's like bad. They don't follow the rules. They don't do everything that everybody else is doing. And y'all look at him like, yeah, that guy, he's just not doing it right. I will fall asleep in class. Like Bill Engelbrett will call me out in class. I'll be dozing off in class. And he will call out from the front of the room like, Dre, hey, if you don't want to be in this class, just leave. Because if you keep falling asleep. I was like, no, I wasn't falling asleep. He was like, yes, you were. I saw you. He would see me falling asleep, and I always deny it. Like, no, I wasn't falling asleep. But anyway, I would look around at the other students in that class like, am I the only person who doesn't get this, that this guy doesn't know a damn thing about business? But then I realized what the problem was. I realized why they were paying so much attention to Bill Engelbrett and all these other business professors who didn't know shit about running a business, is because they didn't want to be business people. They didn't want to own businesses. They didn't want to have a business. They didn't want to have a platform. They didn't want to do anything that was non-traditional. They wanted to follow the blueprint. The blueprint is this: go to school, graduate, get a job, work for somebody else for the next 60 years, live happily ever after. All right, if that's what you want to do, I might not be the person to teach you how to do that. Actually, I'm not the person. All right, I'm not the person to teach you how to do that. So understand that. If that's what you're looking for, that's the type of information you're looking for, you are watching the wrong Periscope. I'm not that guy. All right, I realized that 95% of my classmates, not 95%, 99%, if it was 100 of us, I was the one. All right, 99 out of 100, they just wanted to do something traditional. They wanted to go work for some company, work for some insurance company. They wanted to go, exactly, the blueprint gets you a job at a university. That's what the blueprint does. Listen, my sister's the master of the blueprint. My sister's name should be Jay-Z, the blueprint. All right, the blueprint. She wrote the blueprint, and she's going to get a good job at some university, and she's going to work there for the next 40, 50 years, maybe, unless she decides to do something different. And we've had conversations about that, but she kind of is like, yeah, I don't know. She's going to follow the blueprint. Let's just put it that way. So anyway, 99% of my classmates, they wanted to follow the blueprint. They wanted to do what they had been taught by their parents, which is go to school, get your degree, get your business degree from Penn State University, put that on your resume, print it out, put it in a nice folder, put your suit and tie on, and go to a job fair and get you a nice job, and get you a nice starting salary, and then after 3 to 5 years get a raise, then 5 years later get another raise and get a nicer car, a nicer house, get a dog, get married, have kids, upgrade your life every time you get a raise. And then by the time you're 65, you retire on 40% of what you was barely getting by on. You realize that when you're 65 that, damn, I followed a blueprint that doesn't work, and now there's no social security for me. How am I supposed to live? And now you got to get a job at Walmart saying, hi, welcome to Walmart. Now that's what happens to people when they follow the blueprint. Now I'm not saying that's going to happen to you, because now you got the information. Now you're responsible for that information. Now you might be able to do something different. The fact that the purpose of this whole scope is just to let you know that what you see on social media, when you see people who are like, they build a business on it, people who build a platform on any type of website, whether it be their own blog, whether it be they on like social media, Snapchat, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, a Periscope, anything. And they had these non-traditional business formats. Like they teach you stuff. You can watch their class. You can take somebody's class on the internet. Like you can pay. I'm not talking about a college class. Like you could pay for somebody's webinar, $50 for their webinar, and they teach you how to make sales. And you go out and make $5,000 worth of sales 30 days later with the information that you paid $50 for. That's not something that they teach in school. Ain't no school for this shit. And a lot of those people who do that, a lot of them don't even get hired by universities. If you look around at where they're speaking at, they speak at business conferences. They speak at social media conferences. They speak to chambers of commerce where there are business people who gather to get information. That's where they speak at, because those are people who understand, like, this is a completely different world. And the problem that a lot of people have who've grown up following the blueprint, and I'm not talking about super old people, I'm talking about people who are in their 30s, even people who are in their 20s, they grow up following the blueprint. They have what we call confirmation bias. You know what confirmation bias is? Confirmation bias, I'll explain in a second. A confirmation bias is when you spend so much time doing something, doing some activity, you basically have confirmed that that activity is a positive, is a proper thing to do, is a good thing to do, is a thing that you should do. The reason that you confirm that it's something you should do is because you've invested so much time, energy, and effort into doing it. Is no way that you could ever convince yourself and shift your paradigm that what you've been doing is the wrong thing. So, for example, I have a confirmation bias for working on your game, for playing basketball every single day for 20 years straight, working on your game till you get good. I have a confirmation bias that is burned into my mind, into my psyche, that is the right thing to do. Why is that? Not because somebody explained it to me, not because I read it in a book, but because I spent 20 years actually doing it. So if someone was to come to me and try to convince me, like, Dre, spending 20 years working on your game and getting better at basketball is a stupid thing to do, it would be very, very, very difficult for that person to convince me that that is true. Why? Because I spent 20 years, I invested 20 years of my life into doing it. So how could somebody come along and talk to me for 10 minutes and convince me that what I spent 20 years doing is wrong? There's no way you're going to be able to convince me of that. So if you go to somebody who spent 4 years in high school, 4 years in college, another 4 years in graduate school, 2 years in MBA school, another 4 years another 3 years in law school, another 2 more years to get their PhD, like my sister, and try to tell her, like, listen, the blueprint you've been following is not going to work. All right, you're going to get to a point where it's not working, and you're going to realize that you've been following the wrong blueprint all along. I can't convince her that in 13 minutes, what she spent 13 years doing. She'd be like, what is you talking about? I know what I'm doing. I got a degree. I got this degree. I got that degree. I went to this school. I got this many student loans. Look at all this paperwork that I got hanging on the wall. Look at this job that I'm about to get. Look how people look at me so prestigiously when they realize what I've done so far in my life. What you going to tell me about what I'm doing is wrong? I spent 13 years invested in this. That's what a confirmation bias is when somebody spends so much time, effort, and energy devoted to doing one thing, it's very hard to convince them that what they're doing is the wrong thing to do. So it's hard to find people who can look at something objectively that they've been investing their time in and say, you know what, this just doesn't make sense. Let me try something different. Because why? We all have there's a stigma attached to people. That I had this conversation with my sister. I've had some of this conversation with her. But again, she has a confirmation bias. So it's not really much you can say to her. And you got to understand that when somebody has that many degrees, they're pretty damn smart. My sister's really smart. The thing is, the smarter somebody is, the harder it is to convince them that what they know is incorrect. Because they're so smart that they can shoot down all your objections. It's easier to convince a person that doesn't know anything because they're open to knowing that they don't know everything. When you're talking to somebody who's spent that much time in school, you try to tell them something that wasn't taught in school, they don't believe it. Because they think that going to school is where all the information is. Does that make sense? And somebody goes to school, gets a degree, a high school diploma, then they get a college degree, then they do extra college again, then extra college again. And they spend 10 years in college, and then you come along with your 4-year degree, your meager 4-year peasant degree, and you tell them that you know something that they don't know. They like, that makes no sense. I went to school for 12 years, you went to school for 4. I must know 3 times as much information as you know. So if you know something that I don't know, it's probably not good information because it wasn't taught at the schools that I went to. So do y'all understand that? That's the reason why it's hard to explain things to people who have that much schooling, because it's been burned into their minds that everything they need to know has been taught to them in school. Now here's the point that I was getting at. I forgot what my point was. Confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is when you spend so much time doing something that you just get so dedicated to it, for lack of a better term, that you just can't believe that there's any other way of looking at it. So I'm gonna end this stream. It's been a long stream here. I know it's I went on a tangent for a lot of different things. But I want to make sure y'all understand this, that there ain't no school for this shit. You can't learn this in school. And that doesn't mean you should drop out of school if you're in school. What it means is this. If you're in school right now and you want to do something when you get out of school that is not taught in school, it is your job to educate yourself. It is not the school's job to educate you. Your real education, your real life education, the education that's going to make you become what you really want to become, the success that you really want, is not going to be taught to you in school. It's going to be taught to you by what you decide to learn when you get out of school. And yeah, now some people got to go get ready for school, right? It doesn't make it bad to go to school. Listen, just understand the game that you're playing, all right? Just understand the game that you're playing. The question is, how do you do that? How do you just research and grind? Now, you don't really have to research. Now, I don't really get when people say they got to research. You know, people are like, yo, I got to do my research before I make a decision on this. I got to do my research on what you just told me about. Listen, dude, like, if somebody's doing something that you ain't doing and they doing it at a level that you ain't doing it, that's your research right there. Just the fact that they doing it and you ain't. Ain't that enough research that person knows they talking about? So let me explain, how do you do that to answer that question? That was a side note. To answer that question, you got to read books. All right, you got to read books. Read books. If you don't know which books to read, go to my website. I'll help you out. DreAllDay.com. Go to the link that says guides and tips. And what I do on that page is I show you what books I read on certain topics. I got books on personal development, books about business, books about relationships, books about making money, books about how to interact with other people. Y'all need these skills, and they don't teach this stuff in school. You got to understand that there's a whole lot to know, that if you want to be successful, there's a lot that you got to know that is not taught in school. You got to make sure you get it. Now, I just got a notification on my phone that I'm at 20% battery. I forgot to put the charger in here, so we got to cut this off before my phone cuts off. I appreciate y'all sticking around for so long. Make sure you share this, please. Share this on your Periscope streams. This will come out on YouTube in a couple weeks. Share this on your streams. Let people know that there ain't no school for this shit. You can't learn this in school. You can't learn this in the traditional world. You got to go and get the extra information if you want to get extraordinary results, all right? School is to exercise your mind somewhat. No, exercising your mind is what you do outside of school. School basically teaches you how to follow the program. If you want to be like everybody else, that's what you learn in school. You learn how to follow. Because in school, if you don't do what everybody else is doing, then you get ostracized. It means there's something wrong with you. All right, what you got to do is educate yourself outside of school. Read books, get personal development programs, listen to audios. You can find all this stuff on YouTube. It's out there. It's free for y'all. You just got to go get the information. If you don't know where to find it, y'all hit me up. But let people know to watch this stream even after it's over, because a lot of information I share here that a lot of young people need to hear. And even people who ain't that young, if you out of school, you still need to hear this. Because, listen, every day is a chance. Every day is another opportunity to do what you want to do with your life. And you know what you really want to do. It ain't for me to say. It ain't for nobody else to say. You know what you really want to do. It's a question of if you want to do it or you going to keep living in the fog and confirmation biasing yourself to death. All right, now you could do that or you could do something else, but it is your choice. Work on your game. DreAllDay.com. Thanks for checking out this video. Make sure you follow all my top content up here. Follow me on all your favorite social networks right over here. And make sure you are subscribed to catch all the new content I put on this channel every single day. Work on your game.